Welcome back. We are here connecting to your bliss with Dana Whitfield, your intimacy and confidence expert in and out of the bedroom. Today, we're going to understand a little bit more about what is intimacy and why does it matter, and why I care so much that you get a juicy, intimate, and fulfilling relationship. Well, I was of someone who did not know her own intimacy. I was very in my masculine, always trying to help, always trying to mother, always trying to do the things, and I would never receive. And it really didn't allow me to sustain and feel like I was secure inside of a dynamic called partnership. So I really wanted to break it down and kind of relay the message that there's actual health benefits to being more intimate in your life. It's not just about having the lovey-dovey relationship. You can do this even if you're by yourself. So one of the things that everyone talks about is stress. It is everywhere. We're stressed about work, we're stressed about home life, we're stressed about this thing, da 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 da. You know what I would order if I was a doctor? An orgasm. Why? It drastically reduces stress, not only for your whole physical body, but your mental body, your emotional body, and your spirit. We will dive more into that another day around what Tantra is, because that's the juiciness of sacred intimacy. Today is just understanding what intimacy actually is. It's the connection, the deep closeness with yourself or another, and just everything feels blissful. Hence, connect to your bliss. It also has mental health adjustments. It's something that I really have a hard time talking about, but also a real big soft spot in my heart because growing up, we dealt with a lot of mental health issues. My sister was someone who, uh, God love her, but she was struggling a lot of the time. And finally, she was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. Funny enough, our parents were very detached and they were not very intimate, or they weren't outwardly intimate in showing us what a loving, intimate relationship looked like. And that really didn't allow us to connect on a deeper level. I was starving for intimacy and like I felt like I didn't deserve it at some point, and that really played a large role in my mind of, what connection looked like, what an intimate relationship looked like, whether it was platonic or not. It didn't allow me to be fully expressed inside of a partnership because I thought I had to do it all on my own. A lot of the time, my parents were sick. So my mom had Crohn's disease growing up, which is the inflammation of the bowel. And then my dad, he passed away of cancer when I was about 11 years old. So there wasn't a lot of time to really understand dynamics of healthy relationships because we were always in and out of the hospital and dealing with things of that nature. And then if when they weren't sick, they were dealing with my sister's mental illness and what have you. So intimacy for me is just stemming from this deep-seated need and want to be emotionally connected and like gotten and seen. And that's actually one of the other things that I find very interesting. It can really allow you to have a sense of belonging and security inside of yourself. It's no one else's responsibility to do that, but when you're in a loving, intimate relationship, you can literally just like relax. And especially for us women, it's highly important that we relax inside of wanting to receive. Our natural ways of being is to receive. And when we don't, and we're hyper masculine, we don't only just cut off the men in our life and emasculate them, but we cut off our own supply of receiving opportunities and love and just like even sex and just all these beautiful things. And I just, I don't want to live in a world where we don't have this at our disposal, where we can understand each other on a deep, deep level. And there's just this big sense of trust that comes through, especially in relationships where I was someone who never trusted anybody because they always let me down. They never took responsibility for their things, et cetera, et cetera. Down the road, you figure out I wasn't being the same way, where I wasn't taking responsibility and what have you. And I really didn't trust myself enough to follow through with the things because underneath it all, it was like I didn't have this the foundation saying, I do what I say I'm going to do. Foundation of integrity. We love this word. And when you don't honor yourself, and this is what I'm getting, a lot of times people will look at integrity and be like, well, you said you're going to do this and now you're not because you don't feel like it, or da 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 da. And it's like, no. Integrity is integrity with self first, meaning you honor what you need first. And sometimes, yeah, outwardly it could look like you're flaky or that you don't follow through on things. But if you're in communication about it, and this is another line of communication inside of intimacies, if you're like, hey, I don't want to do this thing right now. Let's say you're texting all day with your honey and you're like sexting and you're like, yeah, I'm getting really very excited. And then you get to a point where it's like time to do the actual deed itself in real time. But for whatever reason, you're blocked. You have this thing going on where it's like, I don't want to. What's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you. We really ought to be responsible for the fact that we are forever changing beings and we're never the same person twice. So even if you set it up exactly the same, you have an orgasm exactly the same, and like you're never going to experience something the same way you did previously. So chasing after the way things used to be is a waste of your time. I will say that. Intimacy is also really good for conflict resolution. It's like we'll just go where, when you've had an orgasm or you see someone that's like got some, they have this glow about them, right? And they're more ought to be like understanding or empathetic. Like, I forget what movie it was, but there was a movie or show that the student was the student was going around and he essentially was sleeping with older women. And basically they come across this teacher who's an absolute bitch, and she was like, no, like F F F. Even if their work was like top notch, it was an A+ grade, she would still fail them because she had like a stick up her butt. So anyways, basically the thing was he ended up sleeping with her and everyone started getting A's. It was just like really interesting. I think that story plot has been in a couple of shows and movies and entertainment, but just the underlining message is like when you have this glow about you and you're like relaxed and you're not so stressed out and everything's working for you, you actually are more empathetic and understanding, or less likely to like, blow a fuse, as they say. So intimacy is so very vital in your health and well-being and essential to your growth. Like I am through and through a growth human. I love to grow into the discomfort of like, I used to do things this way. Like I used to be really righteous and really judgmental. And yes, as a human, you are automatically judgmental. It's just like how the brain works to protect you and everything else. But you come to a certain point to realize like we are all the same and we are all internally connected. So intimacy is definitely something you want to learn on a different level. And unfortunately, sex education sucks. You were never taught how to connect. You were never taught how to honor someone's body, let alone yourself. So we're sitting here like just two physical bodies trying to do the things and wondering why our relationship sucks. Well, you're not dealing with the other parts of yourself. We have the emotional part. We have, yes, we just mentioned the physical part. We have the intellectual part. So a lot of the times the intellect will take over when you ought to be dropped in your body. This is where trauma is stored. This is where a lot of the problems actually happen. And the intellect is the one to interpret what's going on. So this, even in the scenario of sexting all day, and now I get here and like I have a blockage, there could be something going on in your intellect, your emotional body, and also your spiritual body. We never talk about this. We've always had it asked backwards, especially through religion. I have to tell you, sacred intimacy is one of the most beautiful things that really understanding around how spirituality and sexuality are linked. How to have an orgasm is to see God or connect to your higher self, spirit, source, universe, whoever you denominate with. And it's a message I really want people to understand that you have the power to um, forgive, to really open yourself up and receive. A lot of the time in my practice for Tantra is where I taught people how to receive, and this is not something we're taught. And women need to know this. We need to start trusting and letting our guard down, especially in a loving relationship. I'm not saying letting your guard down with every single human you come across because there are assholes out there, let's be honest. But when you are in a committed relationship, a partnership, there shouldn't be anything in your way of connecting to this human on any certain level. This is where the vulnerability happens. This is where you're like, this actually lowers your freaking blood pressure. If you can master the fact that they're there to support you, given that you're with the right human. We'll do another video on that, I'm sure. But like, given that you're with the right human, you can literally just like everything just goes away. You can hand it off to them. You can really allow yourself to be. So start to get curious about where you're not allowing yourself to receive, where you're not allowing yourself to be that sassy, loving girl who can be the girl next door and also be in the 50 Shades of Grey novels, like where on the spectrum are you sitting and where do you want to be sitting? This is my invitation this week. But I really wanted to get a big eye, bird's eye view more around what intimacy is for me, what it does for my life, and how it can help you just be the best version of yourself. It's not just about multiple orgasms and having the best sex of your life, because that's all beautiful. That's a happy byproduct of all the inner work that is to be done to have the connection you want. And even in the practice of 3 years with men predominantly, I found that even if they came in for the sexual component of what Tantra was and the healing, they still walked out of there with a sense of worth. They walked out of there with a sense of confidence because they finally were like, I don't need to prove myself. Men are very, um, they need to produce all the time. They're the doers, right? But you're still human beings. So my invitation is to like drop and just be in a safe space. And women, you need to know that being hyper emasculated and independent is not a badge of honor. It's actually killing your relationships, whether they're romantic or not. And it doesn't allow our society to rise above all the noise and everything else that's going on. So I'll leave it at that. I just want to say how much I love and appreciate that you're here discovering a little bit deeper into intimacy, and not just like the scientific understanding, but like from a perspective that went from being very codependent and like, um, I cheated on my partner to now I am someone who is self-actualized. I called in the partner that I am meant to be with. He challenges me every day and it's beautiful. But that wasn't available to me until decided that I was taking on my own intimacy and discovering what is that I need to thrive in life. So sending you off with so much love, and I'll catch you later.